My name is Brittany McFarland. I'm the Program and Education Manager at SAS Music. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm joining you from Treaty 4 territory in our Regina office right now. So welcome to the music video marketing webinar presented by Creative Saskatchewan and SAS Music. We'll be diving in today. This session is being recorded, so if you have to sneak out early, or if you'd like to review some of the material we cover at another time, we will have that recording available to be shared. If you have folks in your networks who couldn't make it today, you can absolutely share that recording with them afterwards. So yeah, we're really looking forward to diving more into this. As you can see, I'm joined by Lisa from Creative Saskatchewan and Mike from SAS Music. So Lisa's going to hop on a bit later in the hour to share a bit more about marketing and stuff. But for now, we're going to hand it over to Mike Dawson, who will be presenting the main content for us today. So looks like we've got about 10 folks with us right now. I think we've got around 40 registered, so we'll let folks kind of join us. But Mike, if you want to kind of dive in, I think we can kind of get started.
Certainly. Yeah, thanks for joining us. I want to begin by saying that if you have specific questions, just to pop them in the chat maybe, and we'll do our best to address them. We want to make sure that we do all we can to address everyone's specific needs on this matter. It's such an easy conversation that we could fill, several hours just talking about all the different philosophical and then different approaches to how you can look at doing this. But yeah, I want the folks who are able to join us today to be able to direct this conversation a little bit. So we'll start with the beginning of how to market a music video, and I suppose. The easiest way really, I think, is if we look at sort of an optimal album release strategy that also is contingent on releasing music videos. And so that isn't always the case, and often there will be a video that comes after the record is done or after the music is out. And there are certainly avenues in which you can pursue marketing that and to great avail, and we'll discuss that as well. But I think really just to reel it all back to the very beginning, maybe if we sort of look at an optimal timeline, as you will with a music video. And so in a lot of instances, it's if you're about to release an album and you're sort of sitting on all of the content, so that would be some singles and some videos and some other pieces associated with ideally some tour dates. And so assuming that that's the case, the first couple steps I would suggest, and we can go deeper into these details, would be to step one, announce the album and share the first single, which I would utilize that as in a media release and via your socials and all of those pieces. And then the second step would be that I would share the music video, and with that I would include ideally some tour dates or some other additional information, so that there's a despite the fact that what you're really ultimately trying to push is the music video, there's some other just material in which any sort of blogs and websites can sort of be utilized to pitch a story and drive readers to. And so how do we go about doing that? Oh, there's a question. Is anyone else having terrible echo? Is that coming from me, or is this just one individual with the echo?
I don't hear any echo, Mike.
Okay. Then as we were, so really a music video, it holds so much value. I think we all know this. It's a way that folks are going to be drawn into whatever else you're utilizing. So on one hand, it's a really valuable tool to market other pieces, but it also is a way in which people can experience your music, on a visual platform. And so I highly suggest the first step that everyone does is slow down a little bit the release of the music video. I know there's always an anticipation that something's finished and you're so eager to share it. But I would recommend taking the time and shopping the video around to a number of blogs, websites, other online platforms. And to do this is a little bit of homework on your own end. There's not really a clean, simple way to do it. Every sort of genre functions in a slightly different way or has different, avenues in which you would want to reach out to that are the best fit for your music. And so I think really the best way to start with that process is to look to artists that you really like or artists that you're a fan of, or perhaps your peers have found some success, and see where their music is being shared and reach out to those sources. And so that would be step one before you even sort of anyone knows this music video exists. And I would give that 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks to reach out and see if someone would be interested in a video premiere or exclusive premiere of the video on the release date. So of course, to do that, you'd want to set up a private link, or on YouTube is the easiest, just the simplest platform, no passwords, just a link that you can share with them, and a little bit of a write-up to do that. And don't be alarmed or disheartened if you don't hear back, or if you don't hear back immediately, and you certainly very politely follow up, maybe a week later, and give it a window before you move on to the next outlet. We're finding the blogs are moving away from sort of exclusive premieres more so than they were a few years ago. It doesn't mean that it can't happen. Certainly, if it does happen, it usually means you've landed something that probably has a little bit more reach or bigger bandwidth on their behalf. But with that said, if something doesn't come through, certainly follow up with them on the release date, and we'll touch on that in 1 second here. So you've got the music video, you've put together a little bit of a write-up about it, and you're going to pitch it out. And so the question is always, well, how do I find the contacts, or where do I know to go? And so in most instances, if you look at sort of any blog or website, and there are fewer, I think, perhaps now than there was 5 or 10 years ago, but I think they're equally as impactful. Most of them, you'll be able to find a contact page or a submission page, some sort of process that's either at the very, very bottom of the website if you scroll to the absolute bottom, or deep within the contact page. And they don't usually make it the most obvious link on the page, but it is there and it's available. And that's the avenue that I would take as phase one before we even look at putting the thing in the world, is to try to position it to get someone confirmed that they will share it before it's live elsewhere. So part of it is the video. Obviously, the video is the pure strength. You're really proud of your video. You've worked with the visuals. You're proud of the song. It all comes together. But you still have to really ensure that there's a bit of a pitch behind it that's, crafted it and falls in line with your own personal brand, or your own personal philosophy as an artist of how you want to be perceived, but a bit of a rationale of why you would like them to cover it and what they're going to get out of it. And so, that could be if you have extraordinary social reach, or, you've had TikTok videos that have gone viral, whatever those bits and pieces are that you can help direct folks back to their website, because it's ultimately anything that's sort of blog supported. I mean, it's in the same capacity, I think, that sometimes we talk about artists is that can be, in the evolution of the media landscape, it can be a little bit of a challenge to monetize your music and ensure that's what it's worth. And I think music journalists sometimes feel the same. And so if you can build a reciprocating relationship in which you're driving all of your fans and followers to their site, it's certainly more fruitful for them to want to support you in return. And so that's one of the pieces. The other piece is to think about the story of the video, and whether that is the story that is the song. The song is very meaningful to you for a specific reason, or something very unique happened in the studio while you were working on the song itself. An anecdote that's like shareable, memorable, quotable. And on the flip side, I think that there's also often a lot of room to provide in this pitch some information on specifically the video side as well. And so whether that's a quote from the filmmaker about their vision that's included in the press release, or an anecdotal story of something about the making of the video, the bits and pieces of the video, where it came from, I'd include that all in one nice sort of tidy package, along with essential dates, release date of the first single, release date of the album, all of those things in one document. And you don't want to attach a whole bunch of sort of cumbersome big files. And so you may want to provide a Dropbox link to a couple high-res photographs, perhaps a streaming version of the full album just for their own perusal. But that's where I would begin before we even actually think about how do we market the video as it exists, is sort of do some of that pre-legwork, put yourself out there, and see if you can get someone on board to share it before you even put it into the world. And I'm still an advocate for blogs, specifically blogs that are very sort of genre or niche specific. And I think that every artist sort of has that their own space in which they fit in a musical landscape. And sometimes it can be something massive. It can be whatever, Rolling Stone or Spin Magazine or NME, and sometimes it can be something a bit more niche, like Pigeons and Planes or Consequence of Sound. And sometimes it can be something substantially sort of smaller, less name recognition, brand recognition. But if it has a very dedicated readership and following, which many of them do, it still helps you present your music in front of people who are eager to discover music that sounds like what you're doing, and to see the video that's going to connect with them. And so I think that it's leave yourself open, and it's always worth pursuing, even if you don't land your first objective destination for the video, but you find someone else who's excited about it, and their readership will follow along. And that's sort of one of the key steps, I think, to building a committed audience that's going to follow you throughout the rest of your career. So that's where I would begin with step one. Another question coming through. Would you recommend sending a music video press release as an attachment, or a link to Dropbox, Google Drive, or just the press release directly in the email? So on the initial outreach that you send out, I would this is how I would position looking for exclusive premiere or someone to commit to sharing it before you've done sort of a blanket press release, is that I would take a moment very briefly in sort of a couple sentences to introduce yourself, to let them know why you're reaching out to them, which ideally would be, that you're a fan of their publication. And if you can quickly reference some sort of meaningful interview or piece that you've engaged with on their site in the past, that keeps you coming back as a reader, just that they feel like it is a personalized approach, because ultimately it is. You're taking time to send it. And then I would just put in the body of the email the sort of the press release quote information about that video. You can certainly also include it in the Dropbox. If I would include at the bottom of your email, here's a link to the Dropbox with other assets, and in there I'd include press releases, high-res album art, maybe all the MP3 files, or a streaming link to the album, and then a PDF of the press release as well, just so they have it. But the easier it is for them to access it without having to click a bunch of places and go elsewhere, you sort of get that few moments when that most of these sites are receiving dozens, if not hundreds, of pitches a day. The more information you can provide sort of directly to them, the better the outcome is typically going to be. So that's where I'd begin. And then it comes down to the release date leading up. So let's assume that perhaps we've had a blog come on board and they want to share it the day before you launch release. So perhaps you have it, and that's also all right. This is just sort of a first wave of many to ensure that the video has a long life, and that it helps build new audiences, and that your existing audience know that it's out and are eager to share it. Step two is, does everyone, I don't know how I'm going to ask this question. This is ridiculous to ask this, but does everyone have set up their own YouTube channel? I'm going to assume that most folks do. They set up a channel, an artist channel, and in it you have sort of a bio with your essential information and all those bits and pieces, and all of the oh, sorry, the chat's just, of course it is. Q&A works perfect. My apologies. I keep saying use the chat and the Q&A. We're not. Yeah. So you've set it up. So once you've set up, the typical YouTube channel, there's another avenue, and it's called the Official Artist Channel, or OAC, which is, it's just sort of it gives you a little bit more reach. It's an avenue in which, as a musician, I'd recommend taking the time. You have to apply for it. There's a link that I can pop in after which you go through. And so you have to meet certain criteria, one of which is you have to have uploaded 3 videos. So if this is your first video, you may not be eligible. Perhaps you have 2 live videos or something to get up to it. And then there's a few other criteria, one of which is that you have to utilize one of their major distribution outlets. But if you're using CD Baby or DistroKid or any of those sort of online digital distribution platforms that you can subscribe to, that qualifies, and so you're eligible for that. So I would recommend everyone just taking the time to set that up. And I know that if you've Googled how to market a music video, chances are you're mostly just getting information on how to maximize your YouTube channel, and that's valuable. Certainly it is, and certainly it's a thing you can grow. It becomes ultimately another social channel you have to manage, but I think that there's a lot of value to do it. And so, yeah, so that's step 2, I guess, is ensuring that you've set up your own, your YouTube channel. You're not just hosting it on the same channel that maybe you've uploaded your home fishing videos or what have you. So that's part of your artistic brand, to make sure that you've sort of delineated in the same way that you'd have social media channels dedicated to your music. And then we're now up to release date. The video's coming out. No, that's not true. Let's back this up a moment before this. Okay, so we've set this up. We've given ourselves 1 month. I should have made some slides, but I was determined not to, because I want to ensure that we can jump all over as questions start to roll in on bits and pieces of this. But so we're in a pre-release strategy. We've sent out this. We're hoping that someone jumps on board to release it. But we have a date fixed. So our date is October 1st. The video is coming out. I would suggest that you start rolling out some teasers for the video maybe 2-3 weeks beforehand. And to do that, I would take a couple stills from behind the scenes. Hopefully you got some footage from the day you made the video, just a couple photographs, and something you can post. Still number 1 of behind the scenes, the making of, something's happening here, and let folks know that something's coming, and just sort of a rollout, a teaser. I've got something coming. Your general engagement will see that that's happening. They'll want to be involved in that, and they'll follow along, and all the clicks and likes we're looking for. I would share probably a second one, just another behind the scenes, a special moment, and let folks know, the video is coming on this day. Here it is, it's happening. And ideally, if you have any sort of anecdotal stories, anything in which, it's a shareable personal connection ultimately is what it is. I think when we're all working on making anything, any piece of art, it typically comes from a very personal place, and we learn lots about ourselves in making it. I think that we have to encourage everyone not to be too hesitant or reticent to share those thoughts. And so, if that's, I had to conquer this fear, perhaps, in making the video, and show it still, and it's your skydiving or your whatever that is. Those are great moments, I think, to build engagement. And then I would recommend a third sort of teaser, and this is, we're looking at kind of 2 weeks out, just to give you a bit of content every couple of days to lead up to it. And I would share a screenshot or a still from the video, a sort of something that shows how beautiful it looks. Ideally, you don't want to give away that absolute sort of ideal pinnacle moment where the video climaxes, but you want to have something that's visually stimulating that people think, oh, this is gonna be cool. I can't believe we've got this video happening. And then a fourth piece, if we're looking at, stretching this, let's say 2 weeks, and post something every 3 days about the video, is I would have little video teasers, 1 or 2 of them clipped together, that just show, 5 or 10 seconds of the video, a special edit that the video or filmmaker can put together for you. And ideally you can have those in multiple formats. And so you could have some cuts that are just designed to fit Instagram stories, and some that will fit on sort of basic Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And in all of these, as with the actual video, I would highly recommend you upload them directly to each platform. I think that in the scheme of life, YouTube is sort of the go-to for videos, or sort of one of the most desirable avenues. And that's where people always want to direct folks to see their video. And I think that there's value in that. But I also think that your engagement on those other direct social medias, if you upload directly to Facebook, for instance, you're going to get far more engagement, you're going to get far more views than if you post a link and try to send people off that platform to view it in YouTube. And so, at the end of the day, if you're counting cumulative views across all platforms, I think you're going to wind up with the same number, but that number is going to be higher than if you're just directing people to YouTube and trying to get them to leave Facebook, because it's going to suppress that algorithm, and you're not going to get everyone to be able to tune into that. So those are sort of some of those key steps I would do to lead up to it. And I think really that those teaser videos are highly valuable, and you've probably seen many artists do it, and it takes a bit of planning ahead of time. It takes some coordinating certainly with the filmmaker, and I think we have some filmmakers who join us today. But I think they are really great, and they're highly valuable pieces to have. And so that's sort of now we're kind of approaching on the release day. So on the release day, as I just mentioned, we want to ensure that we upload the video across every imaginable platform. We want to make sure that all the essential information is available, especially on the YouTube, but on all of them really. We want to make sure that we give credit to everyone involved in the project, the filmmakers and the funders, of course, song credits. But it's also, I think, one of the most important things that you can do here is ensuring that the file is labeled accurately, and that the title is, artist name / song name brackets official music video, so that when people are actively looking for it, they're not coming across multiple versions or someone who's filmed something on their iPhone. You're directing them directly to it, and that official music video is going to feed well into algorithms. And the other piece I think for YouTube that's important is hashtags, just the tagging, but I ultimately think of them as hashtags. And this is part that's easy to skip, but I think that it can be really valuable, especially if you sort of think of it based on your location, whether that's Saskatchewan, Regina, Saskatoon, Canada, what have you, genre, whether that's country, alternative country, Americana, folk and roots, sort of including as many of those as possible to direct people. And then also mood and theme, whether that's whatever that could be, like if it's celebration or wedding, what if there's some theme that ties to it that can direct folks to it, it's going to help work with that. So you've got all those pieces, they're all in sync. You want to upload them as close to in real time as you can and share across all platforms, but you also really want to send out that press release first thing that morning, if not sort of midnight the night before. This is an instance in which it matters, and it doesn't matter which day you want to release a music video. It's typically sort of an album in releasing music. So historically, it used to be that an album would come out on a Tuesday in North America and a Friday in Europe. And they moved to this universal release date several years back. So they've now, most albums in the world will come out on a Friday, which sees most folks putting out singles on a Tuesday or Wednesday, because typically on a Monday, people are just back after a weekend and catching up, and you have more reach pitching things on a Tuesday, Wednesday. And then you see artists who have a fairly established fan base sometimes just drop an album on a Tuesday because they don't want to compete with everyone else who has stuff going on a Friday. But at the end of the day, sort of those playlists and all of those pieces that come along with how we digest music these days typically happens on the Friday. And so I would recommend, in the same thought as releasing a single, is to send the stuff out for a Tuesday or a Wednesday, sort of try to catch folks midweek and not going into the weekend, because it's easy to get lost in the shuffle. And by Monday, someone's inbox is piled up with dozens more pitches or hundreds more pitches. And so sometimes if they don't get to it on the Tuesday, it's still a vital piece of news on the Wednesday. Now, with that said, the press release, we can chat at length about this at any time. Just reach out to me directly. We can fill this whole hour with it. I don't want to do that, but I do think that this press release, one thing to consider here is if you feel really great about the anecdotal pieces of the video and the song that you've included in the first pitch, and a blog's already picked that up and shared that with you, this is an opportunity in which you can sort of control that narrative and share more of the story. And so, I would suggest perhaps if a blog's already sort of shared the video yesterday with all that information, I would update this press release to have a different quote, sharing a different story or a different part about the song and about the video, because it's just more of an avenue in which you can have more folks talking about it, share more information with the song, which is going to make more people engage with it, which I think is Yeah, that would be my advice on that piece. I also think, although we're uploading all of these files, to Instagram directly, YouTube, I would recommend using a link site like Linktree, linktr.ee as an example. There's several of these options in which they're ultimately one site where you can share a whole bunch of links and label what they are, and so that gives you an avenue to direct people to the video on multiple different platforms, or to your Spotify and what have you, all at once. And that's a piece you can share, in your Instagram bio, etc. So all these pieces are sort of adjacent, I think, to the actual marketing of the video, but I think they're all sort of essential pieces to ensure that you're building up some following, some excitement, some anticipation for the video. B, you're ensuring that it reaches as many people as possible. And C, you're ensuring that it has as many discovery options as possible. So folks who, may not follow you on some of your socials, but maybe a fan of music, or may just discover your music through it, you're crossing all of those bridges as you come to it. One other piece that I meant to mention earlier, but I skipped over a little bit, is that when you claim your artist page on Spotify, this isn't entirely video related, but on Spotify, there's an option for Canva, which allows you to upload a short video clip. I think it's a maximum of 7 seconds or something, and it's a running loop. And so it's a piece when you're working on the video, whether as a filmmaker or as the artist, you want to connect with your filmmaker and pull out like a really special moment of the video that, I always think something that captures the feel, captures what you want to express with the video in these few short seconds, that can live as a loop. So when folks listen on their phone, this animation plays in the background of it. It's just another avenue in which you can you can share some of those visuals. And I know there's been a number of times in which I've discovered an artist on Spotify and was drawn into that Canva, and then went to find out what the source was and watched the music video after the fact. So I think that there's a lot of value there. Yeah, so those are sort of some of the key pieces. I haven't really touched on the paid advertising piece of it, and I haven't really talked about the avenue of doing this utilizing a publicist or another company that works in some of that, and I'm happy to do that. But is there any questions? If anyone wants to throw anything with a Q&A, give it a moment about those pieces before we move on. Nothing? Feeling good? Excellent. Okay, so the video now is in the world. We've shared it across all our socials. There's links everywhere. There's the avenue in which you can advertise, to promote these videos. There are ways in which I think this works really effectively, and there's ways in which I think that you can spend a lot of money, and it doesn't necessarily have the reach that you'd anticipated. It can be a little bit frustrating. And so I think one of the key pieces here is you want to ensure that SEO, especially on the YouTube, if you're looking at running YouTube sponsored ads. And so you can run artist ads on YouTube specifically. You can Google that link and they'll walk you through it. And so it's very similar to how you purchase an ad on any other social media, but it will make it sort of your video clip can become part of an advertisement recommending to folks. And so that SEO, that ensuring that everything's clearly labeled and that people know just what it is from the title and from that thumbnail screen. The thumbnail is such an incredibly important part of all of this, is that old adage that you don't judge a book by a cover, but I think in 2022 we judge everything by a cover, because everything online is such a visual medium. And so in the same way that your album cover for your actual record is so important, because that's the little thumbnail that everyone sees, I think that the thumbnail that you choose to represent your music video shouldn't be just whatever the first recommended thing is when you upload it, that there's an avenue in which you can either select or upload a really, really powerful thumbnail that the folks will come across and draw them into it. So yeah, so I mean, and then the same goes, looking at Facebook ads, and across Instagram. I think that it can be a very, very valuable marketing tool. I think that often it's perhaps most effectively utilized when you're using the video to promote the album versus just specifically marketing the music video. I think, it's the messaging around it can be this, this is whichever song is the single off the new album, blah, 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 available now. And then sort of the essential links to go with it. But I do think that it's worth doing, it's worth exploring. And I think that in looking at that and looking at the directed advertising, using Facebook, for example, it's the strength of those keywords. It's the strength of looking to align your music with artists or labels or or genres that you feel it's most should be most associated with, and so sort of peers who maybe their careers a bit farther along the trajectory than your own, but zeroing in on those, whether it's those artists or locations where that particular music scene is very fruitful, and tagging those locations and having folks from there come across it. And so again, I mean, that's, if anyone has any specific questions regarding the paid advertising piece of it, I think that it can be a very lengthy conversation, but I do think it's something that is worth exploring. And I think it's a piece that through a very simple sort of YouTube tutorial can walk you through some of it, and it becomes a matter of finessing what those keywords are to meet your own best needs personally. And then one of the other pieces that I just mentioned there was a publicist, and this is something we could have talked about off the top. Is anyone currently utilizing a publicist to market their, help the aid in the marketing of an album or music video? If you want to just throw a yes into the Q&A if you're still with me here. We have one, perhaps a couple. So if you're new to utilizing a publicist, or you haven't previously hired a publicist, it can be one of the most valuable tools, I think, in how to share your music, and more importantly, perhaps how to share the messaging around what you're up to, when things are coming, when your release date is going to take place, all of those bits and pieces. And so if you're not familiar, sometimes there's just some base level confusion between a publicist and a publisher, and I get it, the words are similar and a little bit confusing. But so a publicist, it's one of the few roles in the music industry typically that you pay a fee to utilize or to access. It's someone who sort of works on a fixed rate, and that rate is often scalable based on the campaign. So if the campaign is just a music video, or the campaign is a full album release strategy that spans 4 or 5 months, and it's contingent and hinges around a major tour, the cost of which is typically scalable. And so, sometimes you have folks who reach out, and each genre is a little bit different, but most of the other roles, an artist manager typically, or a record label, or a booking agent, their payment is sort of it's usually sort of a percentage of your income. And so, if a booking agent is booking your tours, it's they take 15 or 20% perhaps of the shows that you're playing, sort of as compensation for booking you the bigger shows and helping further your career that way. And the publicist is a different scenario, because it's sort of you're hiring them on contract for this role. And I do think that it can be a little tricky to find a publicist, but I think that there are lots of wonderful people, and I do think that anyone sort of working as a publicist does it because they, particularly in music, absolutely loves music and wants to help artists and wants to see artists grow and succeed. And so it can be a really sound investment. But I think it's essential that you remain open to the feedback from the publicist, that if they're uncertain about they're nervous about it, if it's just a single, like if you're releasing just a song, to sort of keep expectations in check, that there's only so much you can do with a song. A song and a video goes much farther, but a song and a video and album, there's more to work with. And a song and a video and album, some tour dates, there's more, and 2 videos. It's, so you end up paying more, but what you sort of get is you're creating an avenue to just build momentum. And so you can sort of compound one on the other. And so if you announce that first album, you announce the album and you share it for single, and you get a few sites or some publications share some information about it. It gives you a little bit more leverage when you pitch the next piece of it, whether that's some great quotes from those outlets or just it helps expand the reach and the growth. And so then you pitch the second, the video piece to it, and you're able to leverage and grow it. And a publicist, in some ways, I mean, you're sort of paying someone for their expertise, but you're also paying someone for their network of connections, which can be one of the frustrating things as an artist is how do you get this in front of the essential people? And so hiring someone who has those relationships is a great way to do that. And someone had thrown in the Q&A that they were hoping to hire a publicist and wasn't certain where to find one. As with all of these pieces, certainly just feel free to reach out to me directly. I'll throw it in here, Mike at saskmusic.org if there's something specific you're looking for. But I do think that the key piece, advice there is, again, to sort of look at artists that you admire, artists that you follow their career and watch it grow, and see who they're working with. In almost all instances, artists will list their publicist, along with their booking agent and all those pieces on their contact page, whether on their website or on their socials. I do find, even in reaching out to blogs, sometimes if you have a hard time finding the contact information, the about section of Facebook, for whatever reason, seems to be where people made that information accessible. And I think a lot of businesses is because they set up a Facebook page 10 years ago or 15 years ago and sort of forget that that's there. And so they remove it off their website when they get overwhelmed, but it still seems to linger in the ethos of Facebook, or the ether of Facebook, if you will. So yeah, so that's a few pieces there. When you sorry, I'm just reading questions. When you approach places for a premiere, would you recommend having a planned release date or an ideal date range for the video, or would you simply say that you would like them to premiere and that you're flexible with the date? I think that it's advantageous to have a date range. I think for sure, a slight bit of urgency, but also make note of this flexibility. So I mean, I would reach out I think it's like a minimum of 3 weeks in advance to a publication. So if you're pitching something to whatever, so Pitchfork, and you found the contact and you pitch along the video, I would sort of say, currently the release date for this video is October 1st. But there's still some flexibility within that schedule if there's a better timeline that might work on your end. And leave it a little bit open-ended so that you tell them you plan to share it this day, but they give you a reason not to, then perhaps you won't. And so sometimes they'll be like, wow, this week is really, really crazy, but if there's any room to move, you can move to the following week. And so one of the upsides sometimes of a music video, as far as sharing it via socials and stuff, is that it needs less time to gestate in the system than sharing a single across streaming platforms where you want to upload it and not mess with that date, because it needs time to sit on the back end so you can go through and pitch it for all the playlists and pieces. That there are your options there, and that's again another whole conversation. But yeah, so I would set a date, a target date, but I would if there is flexibility, tell them there is room still for flexibility on that end, and wait and see what they say with it. And then the one other piece I wanted to talk, and I know that we had 45 minutes today, which it isn't all the time. It's a long time to listen to me ramble, but it's not a long time to touch on all these different pieces. And so the other piece that I would include in my sort of strategy is that it's out there. You've sent out the press release. It's live on all platforms. You've built a single link that can share it across all those platforms, and that's uploaded to all of your bios, all the bits and pieces. You may have bought a few ads on Facebook or YouTube, and you're trying out those different avenues that direct some folks to discover it. And then it's how do you keep the video alive? How do you breathe new life into it once it's been released? And I think that we've seen, I'm sure everyone's heard stories of artists who a video sort of gets a second life a month or 6 months or a year or 2 years later. It goes viral on TikTok. There's elements of it that are certainly completely out of your control, and that's okay. I mean, something we all hope for. Certainly, you want it to grow organically, but I also think there's things you can do to help keep that alive. And I think that one of those things is to share some more pieces about the video after folks have seen the video. So maybe there's a bit of a behind the scenes clip or a series of clips. If there's a moment in the video that you capture like a really special shot, and whether you built or you've rented, you know, some really unique piece of machinery, or you've duct taped a camera to the back of a Sea-Doo or whatever you've done. I think, you know, if you have some moment to share those behind the scenes pieces, and sort of it reveal maybe a little bit of the mystique, or, you know, celebrate some of the artistry that went into the video, those can be really interesting pieces that help engage and share and redirect folks back to the video. And I think, you know, another thing that can be really great is if you an interview series. And so if you utilize, you know, the video has a large cast, or it just has, you know, maybe it's just one actor, or maybe it's just a single shot and a filmmaker, and just a chance for folks to share their perspective and about the making of it, you know, and the impact that it had, and just engaging things, you know, for people who've seen the video as a reminder to go back and watch it, but also you're creating more shareable moments of, I can't believe this is how they did this, or, you know, this is such a beautiful thing. Can you believe that this is, you know, all those bits and pieces. And so I think it's the video is ultimately what you're marketing and you're sharing here, but I think it's in tandem to a much bigger strategy. And I think that creating additional pieces around it are can be highly valuable to keep people to go back to it. And I would roll those out sort of maybe a month after the release of the video, somewhere in that window time frame. I wouldn't wait years and years and try to go back to it. I think that you sort of want it to still exist in folks' consciousness, and just to blow a little bit of air into it and say, okay, remember this video we did? Well, here's a little series about it. Here's some behind the scenes footage about how this happened. And again, always engaging. And so those are sort of the key pieces I'm going to touch on, and you know, mostly focus sort of on a hands-on sort of DIY yourself at a keyboard pieces that you can do with some outreach and some Google pieces. Obviously, if you're working, you know, with a label that has a much bigger strategy or a much bigger budget, or if you're in the position which you can hire a publicist, which can really aid in the success of some of these pieces, just on that long-standing network that they've built of relationships. I think that those are highly recommended and well worth considering. But I also don't ever want anyone to sell anything they've made short out of frustration. So I think that taking time to consider all of these would be highly advised. Was there any other questions about any of those pieces before we flip over here? Or Britt, did you have any questions?
No, that's good. Such a wealth of knowledge you possess. I just wanted to remind folks that for those of you that are SAS Music members, consults are unlimited and free as part of your membership. So if you want to dive deeper into anything that Mike has said specific to your own project, or, you know, if you want some blog suggestions based on your genres, if you want some publicist suggestions, we're always here. And we work with a huge team of mentors across the music industry. I think it's one of the best benefits of being a SAS Music member, because you can get that personalized advice. So I just wanted to remind folks to access that program. I know Lisa's going to join us right away here. So Lisa, if you want to start getting your screen set up. But yeah, I just wanted to say also Mike's email address was mike@sasmusic.org. He entered it in the chat, but I don't think folks can see that. So I was going to do the Linktree stuff as well, but you should just be able to Google those links. So yeah, just wanted to quickly jump on to say that one, and we'll hand it over to Lisa now, I guess, if there's no more questions.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Mike. And after I'm done my spiel about the programs Creative Saskatchewan offers for music video production, we'll have a bit more time for some more questions. So if you have anything for Mike or Brittany or myself, you know, we'll get to it. But yeah, so Creative Saskatchewan, we do have programs available that support music video production. There's a couple of them, and there's some differences and a couple similarities between the two, which I'll dive deeper into. So the two grants that Creative Saskatchewan offers that supports music video production would be the Market and Export Development Grant. Now there's two streams, there's micro and major, and the Market and Export Development Grant is available to musicians. We also have the Music Video Production Grant, which is solely for the production of a music video. And that grant is eligible for Saskatchewan filmmakers. So the Market and Export Development Grant, as I said, there's two streams. The major stream is a deadline program. There's one deadline a year. The program is open now. You can apply at any time as long as you haven't started the activity. Any applications received before the deadline on January 11th will go to jury. And the Market and Export Development Grant is open to all sectors, both major stream and the micro stream. The micro stream, there's 4 deadlines a year. It's open now, and ultimately it will be closed after the last deadline of February 9th. The next deadline coming up is February 15th. And then after that, it's December the 1st. So yeah, applications can be received at any time. And those applications, it's a bit simpler, more streamlined than the major stream. The applications to micro are assessed both internally and by industry experts. So when a program is open, you can apply. This is just a reminder, but budgeted activities cannot have occurred prior to the application being submitted. So just remember that. The Market and Export Development Grant supports a whole bunch of marketing activities, everything like hiring a publicist, creating marketing and branding materials, doing a website and marketing assets, of course, producing a music video, hiring of social media experts, doing social media and advertising campaigns, production and marketing of live stream performances, a whole bunch of stuff. The applicant to the Market and Export Development Grant can be any Saskatchewan-based musician at any career level with a new product that they intend to market. Typically, that would be a single, an album. If approved, the musicians are the funding recipient. They hire the professionals, they execute the activity, and then report on it. For the micro stream, we support 50% of eligible expenses up to $5,000. As I said, 3 more deadlines this year. Applications assessed internally and by marketing experts against the assessment criteria. Applicants can get up to 1 microstream grant a year. And if you're unsuccessful, you can reapply up to 2 times. The major stream is 50% of eligible expenses up to $25,000 in 1 year or $50,000 over a 24-month period. There used to be 2 deadlines a year for the music sector. Now there's 1, and that is January 11th. And all those applications are assessed by a jury. So yes, that's the Market and Export Development Grant for music video production and other marketing activities. The next grant that we're going to take a look at here is the Music Video Production Grant, which is, of course, solely for the production of a music video. Last year was the first year that we introduced this grant. So this coming this year is our 2nd year for it. There's been some changes. The program will open September the 13th, and it is intended for emerging Saskatchewan filmmakers to produce a music video for Saskatchewan musicians who have an upcoming single to promote. The Music Video Production Grant is 100% of eligible expenses up to $7,500. There's 1 deadline, and that will be November 25th, and applications to this program are assessed by a jury. As far as, an overview of the Music Video Production Grant and the changes that we've made, it's for emerging Saskatchewan-based filmmakers who must have a short film or demo reel of the director's work. It's open to film companies with 2 or fewer employees. If film companies have more than 2 employees, they're ineligible to apply to the program. Filmmakers who have received a director or producer credit on any commercially broadcast project or feature film are not able to apply. Filmmakers must be the applicant to the Music Video Production Grant. They're responsible for finding a musician collaborator to do a music video for. and the musician will complete an authorization form, which the filmmaker will include in the application. The sole purpose for the music video production grant is to create a music video. And a really cool thing about this program is that mentors will be matched with the musician filmmaker teams to ensure that the best possible music video is produced. It's a cost that is covered by Creative Saskatchewan. And is something I don't think people necessarily realize, but it's a really, really cool part about the music video production grant program. All videos made with the music video production grant have to happen here in Saskatchewan. The video projects must be written, directed, and produced by eligible Saskatchewan residents. And also note, musicians will maintain ownership of the finished product, but they must allow the filmmakers to use it in their private portfolio. So you may be wondering, okay, I want to do a music video, or I want to make a music video for a musician. Which program do I apply to? And here's kind of a breakdown to reiterate things. So music video production grant, the filmmaker is the applicant. They have to be an emerging Saskatchewan-based filmmaker who have a short film or demo reel of the director's work. And they must have no more than 2 employees if they're a film company. The filmmaker is the one who receives the money. They're responsible for finding a musician collaborator that they will apply with. And 100% of expenses are eligible up to $7,500. Now, for market and export development, it's the musician who is the applicant. They have to be Saskatchewan based and meet our requirements, but they can be at any career level. If a musician has previously had a video produced by the applicant filmmaker, well, that's ineligible. You have to find someone new to work with. The musician is the funding recipient. They hire their vendors, they execute the project, they do the final reporting, and it's 50% of expenses, up to $5,000 for micro or $2,500 for major. All phases of production for music video production need to happen in Saskatchewan. But with market and export development, it's encouraged that the music video production and post and everything happens here, but it's not mandatory. Videos must be written, directed, produced by Saskatchewan residents for music video production. But for market and export development, it's encouraged, but it's not mandatory. With market and export development, you can, of course, apply for the production of a music video, but you can also apply for a host of other marketing activities like hiring a publicist, a radio tracker, having some other marketing collateral created. Whereas, of course, with music video production, it's only for the production of the music video. But there is a portion of the budget that you can use towards marketing the video, like hiring a publicist or, buying ads, that kind of thing. Mentorship is a big part of music video production grant, not included with market and export development. And intellectual property, music video production, the musicians maintain ownership, but they have to allow the filmmakers to use it in their private portfolio. Whereas with market and export development, typically the musicians maintain ownership, but it depends on the agreement between them and their production company. Neither is a requirement. So that's kind of an overview in a nutshell. If you're interested, first thing you want to do is you want to go on the website. You want to check out the official grant guidelines for the program, to just make sure that you and what you're doing is the right fit. You want to check out the assessment criteria, which is exactly how the applications will be assessed and scored. And it gives you a sense of the questions that you're going to be asked in the application process. Then from there, you want to, if you don't already have a profile in GMS, which is our online grant management system, you'll set one up. But then, yeah, you log in, you submit your application. And of course, you know, throughout the process, if you do have questions, you can reach out to myself or any of the other program officers at Creative Saskatchewan. We're here to help you navigate our programs and make sure that you're on the right track. So yeah, basically in a nutshell, those are the grants that we offer at Creative Saskatchewan for the production of music videos. And if
Awesome.
anybody has any questions, just let me know.
All right, we got a question for you.
Excellent.
Can Saskatchewan musicians apply for videos produced out of province?
Yes, with market and export development.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. And we like, it's as long as it makes sense to go out of province. Like there's tons and tons and tons of great music video production companies and producers here in the province. But you know, sometimes it's like, if it just makes sense to, if you're doing a video about like a song about Vegas, that you go to Vegas. And sometimes it just makes sense. Yeah.
Awesome. Any folks have any other questions? You can plunk them in the Q&A now, and whether for Lisa or Mike or myself or just Sass Music in general. All right, well, it doesn't look like anyone has any more questions. Thank you so much to Lisa and Mike for joining us today. This was super informative. Hopefully you're all feeling inspired and ready to make some awesome videos. Once again, this will be recorded, so if you want to review any of the information we covered in this session, you can rewatch that recording. It will likely be ready in the next couple days here. We'll plunk that up on our funding page at Sass Music. We'll likely share it in our next e-release as well. So thank you to all of the attendees for joining us today. We appreciate you joining us, and keep making awesome music and art, and hopefully we'll see you all soon. Thank you, Mike and Lisa.